Welcome to the tea table. I am so happy you've joined me today. Well, we have another holiday, and this holiday is very close to my heart. Yes, because the 17th of May is Norwegian Independence Day. And my father came as a young boy to this country from far northern Norway with his family when he was 10 years old. Yes. And the music playing is Grieg, the great Norwegian composer. And that's Hall of the Mountain King. And if you ever go to Norway, you will understand that he is writing about the dramatic beauty in nature and the fjords, which are thousands and thousands of miles because they go in and out, very much like what's behind me. Well, if you haven't gotten your tea yet, pause and I will be waiting for you. Let's see what is on the tea tray today. I'm going to move I brought a red purse for Norwegian Independence Day. I'll just go ahead and show you that now. And their flag color is the same as America, red, white, and blue. And I have something else very fun. I have some red glasses. Yes. Well, I'm going to put my purse here. Keep it close, just in case I need something. A purse is an amazing thing. Well, let me show you the tea tray. And I chose blue and white, cobalt blue on gold china. And I'm going to turn the tray around to show you the creamer and sugar and the beautiful china cup. And the name of this china is Regency. See the blue and gold? I love this set. This reminds me of my Norwegian relatives. My grandmother, when I went to her house, her name was Gunhild Avanza Juliana Pedersen, and then her married name was Fauski Hansen. Yes, you know, Gunhild. So when we would go to her house to visit, my siblings and I, it was not a cozy run in the door, hugs and go to the cookie jar grandmother experience, which is, I think, what my grandkids have. No, it was formal, and we sat on her settee, and she had a royal blue velvet love seat and a gold love seat, and we had to sit properly, and she would serve us always out of china cups. Now, I was so young, I wasn't drinking coffee until I grew up, but always coffee. And lefse and homemade bread and cookies. And everyone just held their breath and hoped they were doing everything right. Now, I am going to pour out of this beautiful pot. And I'm going to dedicate this tea talk in the memory of my father. He was a wonderful man. His name was Arnie, and his brother's name was Gudmund. And they came on the boat. Arnie was 10 and Gudmund was 8. Have a little splash of cream. Now, my father, interestingly enough, though he was very Norwegian, he was golden-haired and blue-eyed, he never drank coffee. No, because as a young man, the doctor had told him he had a heart murmur and he shouldn't drink coffee. So he always drank tea. Now, I think there's a lot of caffeine in tea, but somehow it agreed with him, and my father passed away when he would have been 80. We had a few days from his 80th birthday, and one comment the doctor said to me was, "Your father has the heart of a 40-year-old man. I wish I had a heart that good." Isn't that amazing? So either it was a misdiagnosis or the tea really worked. One more thing for tea. Now I spilled a little in my cup, and it's proper. You are allowed to dump back into your cup. You just gently do it with confidence. Keep smiling, and you can do that. Otherwise, you can take a napkin, put it under your cup, and it will absorb the liquid. Oh my goodness, this tea is so good. It's delicious. I love it. I hope your tea is good. The Norwegians have always had a king. Originally, they were under a united kingdom with Denmark. But then, I have something to show you that is a commemoration. And it says, you know, I do need my glasses today. Isn't this good I brought them? I have a fabulous little plate here. Eidsvold, 1814 to 1914. So this is very old. This was 100-year-old plaque to commemorate 100 years of Norwegian freedom. And that's the original 100-year-old, well, what it looked like 100 years ago. Their parliament building. I'm sure it's much different now. So there's quite a story. You know, I want to show you, they have the lions on there. The Norwegian crest is beautiful, and they love their king and their queen, and they have a constitutional monarchy, very much like England. And I had a wonderful privilege to go back with my father and mother to Norway. And do you know, it was not planned, but we arrived there on the train May 17th morning, Norwegian Independence Day. And we were visiting the city of Bergen, which is where Grieg's home is. And I got to visit his beautiful home. It's set in a fjord with mountains going up all around. Oh my goodness, what a place to compose music. Well, my father and I and my mother were in the town square. Who did we see? The King of Norway. He was walking among the people. And we got to see him. It was so special. All the ladies had their bunta on, which is the Norwegian costume. And this is a authentic, it's called solveig. It's the Norwegian jewelry. And these are the earrings that dangle. It's dangles of gold, and it's too small for you to see, but it's a heart with a crown on top. You know, reminds me of Martin Luther. His symbol was the rose with the heart and the cross in the middle. And Martin Luther, when his people went to Scandinavia and converted the Scandinavians, and they are all Lutheran. It's the Lutheran Church is the national church of Norway. And when I went back, I saw the little kirk, they call it, same name as in Scotland, where my father was baptized. And I saw the little house behind the family home where he was born. It was very special. My father was a very dignified, quiet, genuinely compassionate, kind, merciful person. So genuine, so honest. My grandmother was a very good woman, but she was very reserved and everything had to be just right. But I respect her for that. I learned a lot, and I think that's where I developed a lot of my taste, because she always had beautiful china. And this is our treat. Okay, I had a friend call me and say they liked the treat last week. This is very special, and it may not look Norwegian, but I will tell you, the Norwegians cook everything. And this is kind of a chocolate kaka. It's a chocolate kaka. It's a chocolate cake. It's a homemade with walnuts and almonds, and it's very light. It's not as heavy as a brownie. So that is what we're going to have for our tea today. And I put on the tea table a little silver vase with carnations. The Norwegians love their silver and their china. I had aunts that went back to Norway after they told me the story. The Norwegians really suffered during World War II, and they had sent trunks of clothing to them. They sent their best clothing, their furs, their wool, because they couldn't buy anything during the war. They were occupied by the Nazis. It was very dangerous. Well, after the war, they went back and they were with their Norwegian relatives, and they sat down for coffee and cake and cookies, and coffee and cake and cookies. That's what they do about every 4 hours in Norway. They work so hard and run around so much, it doesn't seem to affect their figures. They're in shape. Well, they saw so much beautiful silver at the table, and that's why I have the silver tray today and the silver little dish, because their relatives said it didn't matter if we couldn't eat. We were not going to sell our silver. They prize that as family heirlooms that are passed down generationally. Isn't that beautiful? The family table was so important to them. They would sacrifice food to keep their nice dishes and silver. Well, I have another little, this is real sweet. This is pewter. They have a lot of pewter, and there's a Viking ship on that. Do you see that Viking ship? They have lovely carving. The Norwegians do a lot of carving. And my daughter went to a school in Decorah, Iowa, as a violinist called Luther College. Now, Decorah, Iowa is called Little Norway, and they have a big Scandinavian museum there called the Vesterheim. Vester is west, Heim is home, Vesterheim Museum. They also publish a magazine you can order. Well, when we went to visit her, we went to the museum, and it's 4 floors of massive Norwegian, all beautiful, just cutlery. And what the story is, the Norwegians had come to this part of Iowa for farming. And in 1860, this is very early, they decided they needed a school to train ministers. And so they established a Bible school to train the ministers. And that was the beginning of Luther College. Well, through the years, it expanded and grew. And these farmers did such wonderful, my husband kept saying, this is so impressive that even the handles, and I brought something to show you. This is someone who carved the map of Norway on the handle, and the back that most people, I'm gonna put my glasses on here, most people wouldn't be looking at the back, but they carved in, they didn't lose any space, and they put in the map of all the Scandinavian countries. Sweden, Finland, Norway, and Denmark, and it says Scandinavia, and then they put Norway, and then this is their scoop. And it's a very large scoop, could be for many things it could be used for at the table. And I kind of paired it with this. I thought it was nice. Well, this is what my husband was so taken with. He noticed, he said, because they had an entire room filled with things that the farmers had carved and made tools for working in their fields, tools for working in the kitchen. You know, in the 1860s, you were doing everything by hand. Barely had probably electricity. Barely, you wouldn't have had inside plumbing at that time. So on all the handles and all the dishes, there's always painting and design, and they love to create and decorate. So nice. And there was a tradition in Norway that the front door was painted red. And that's from the Lutheran heritage, because that was saying the blood of Jesus is on our door and we'll be safe. That's what the theme was. So there's a lot of red, white, and blue that is used. I found this kind of a red crown, and I thought they love crowns. There is actually, when the girls are married, there's an actual bridal crown. Beautiful. And they're so expensive now that, like this Vesterheim Museum, they actually rent them out for like $200 for a wedding, and it's all silver or pewter or gold. And it's called the bridal crown, and they pass it down generationally. And you know, that's a very Christian symbol, that we are crowned, that, you know, Jesus is our king and he crowns us. Now, I know that in the Greek Orthodox Church, they also crown the bride and groom together. And the Russian Orthodox Church, they hold the crowns over the head. And it's very beautiful. I love traditions that are kept and passed down. And so many of these traditions go back to our Christian roots. And it's good to know them, right? And we need to keep them and pass them to the next generation if possible. Well, I was thinking about Grieg, who wrote, you know, Hall of the Mountain King, and he wrote dramatic piano concertos that are so, oh my goodness, you can hear it now. And they say his music describes, like I said earlier, the country along the coast of Norway. And you know, Norway has a lot of snow up north. My father told me when he was a little boy, now he was born in 1913, and suddenly it occurred to me he was born during World War I. And he was way up north, and he said before he walked that they put him on skis. That's how they got around. He only saw one car in his life before he came to America, and that was the car the minister had. The minister was the highest in the society. He was educated. He was college trained, and so he would even help tutor some of the children. He did a lot and sometimes in these small little fjord-like villages, the minister was a minister to many of the villages, and he had to drive around. I was just wondering what the roads were like, you know, and what would happen if the car broke down. Who would help him? You know, I was wondering about that. But there was a story that when my father was a little boy, this was the story I always heard. He must have been about 4, and my grandmother had dressed him perfect, and he had little seashell buttons. Everything was perfect. She was such a perfectionist, and he saw that car, and he thought, can I run as fast as that car? You know, you never know what little boys think. He grabbed on the back of the car. The minister, of course, didn't know he was there, and tried to run and keep up with it. Well, plop, he fell. Thank God he didn't get hurt, but he fell flat on his face and all the seashell buttons broke and he was all covered with mud. But I'm sure my grandmother was so thankful that he was all right, that she was tolerant. But she told me that, you know, they always were cleaning. She was in a, she grew up in a 17-room house. Her father was a fishing captain that had a fleet of fishing vessels. Now that was over in the Lofoten Islands. If you look on the map, that's really northwest little islands called Vesterol. Vest means west. Vesterol, the rolling islands. And that's where you see these pictures of the little red houses and then the mountains go straight up. That's where she came from. That's where she lived. And then my grandfather came from Fauske, and she had come over there when she was a young woman and met him to, that's how she met. But when she grew up, she lived in this big house, and her mother sadly died when she was 3, and it's very sad. And so she and her little sister Caroline comforted each other, and then there were older sisters, but then finally there was a stepmother who was quite strict and would make them clean. And my grandmother said the stepmother went around with a white glove. That's what they were doing in those days. So everything was ship-shape, and she told me that once a year, she and her sisters would dress up, and must have been in all their Norwegian costumes, and go down to her father's ships. Really, they were ships. And they would have coffee. And it was not just like a boat. It was linen and silver and polished brass and fine china, and everything was just right. And so she remembered that, and this is real sweet. She remembered one thing her father always said, and I love this. I would like to put it into a poem. He said, "The most beautiful sight in all the world is to come home from a hard day at work and see your true love, your wife, at the stove, stirring the soup, and she's expecting a child, and she has a little child pulling at her skirt." He thought that was the most beautiful sight in all the world. Home, mother, heart, father, love. That's the center of the universe. It's worth working very hard for. It's worth taking the time to listen to each other and to be kind to one another, to be tolerant to one another, to do good deeds for one another. That's the way God wants us to live. And that's when we're the happiest, right? Yes. Well, I thought that this little bracelet kind of matched the necklace, but the pin is what I really wanted to show you because it's so special. You know, I might take this pin off and then pull it up forward to show you, because the work that they do, these are very precious, and it's a very unique traditional pin that is only in Norway. And that's another thing, you know, the Norwegians are so grateful that they are free and that they have their own country. Because there was a time when they were under the rule of Denmark, and you know, it went back and forth. They're all the same people and good people, but they wanted their own land. Everyone wants their own space, right? And Norway is it's very rich in natural resources now, with oil up there in the North Sea. And you know, it borders not only on the North Sea and the Atlantic, Also, it goes up north to the Bering Sea, and it's way up there. I think it borders on 4 or 5 seas. And I was watching with my husband a program on the most beautiful train rides in the world, and they did one in Norway. And it is spectacular. If you ever have a chance to go, that's a place that you would really enjoy visiting. Well, I will tell you one more thing. I keep hearing the birds singing every morning, and it makes me so happy. And I wonder, do you hear the birds sing? I don't know what they look like. I try to imagine, and I go out and I look up in my trees, but they're hiding and I don't see them, but I hear them. And then right behind me, I keep seeing eagles. We have a big eagle's nest way up in the tree. That's way up. Oh my goodness. But isn't it amazing how birds, how they fly, they make their presence known, and then they disappear. And they're so beautiful, the variety and the colors. And it reminds me that God made the birds, and He takes care of them. And God made you and I, and He will take care of us. All we have to do is allow Him to. Yes, He's a gentleman. He won't push. He will just lead. And He will come to help us when we ask Him to. Well, I hope you have a fabulous week. And on the 17th of May, which I believe is next Tuesday, there will be big celebrations all over. I know Seattle has a big one in Ballard. And they sing and dance and play their instruments. And it's very fun. And I have behind me a little picture that is actually, it's Swedish, but it could definitely be Norwegian because they're so close. And it's in the summer dancing and playing the fiddle, and the children and in the costumes. And that's done in the midsummer June. And if you can find one of those celebrations, truly, truly worth your while, because everyone now, everyone now is celebrating because COVID is over, and for the first time in 2 years, they're having this Norwegian festival in Ballard. So if you're nearby, you might want to take it in or find one in your neighborhood. There's a lot of Scandinavian events. Well, have a beautiful week, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. God bless.